World War Zero is an unfortunate name, because every time I told someone I was making a video of a game called World War Zero, their response was, wait, World War Z? Ugh, God no, hell no! Hey, Jarek here. World War Zero is a game. It kind of has some problems and some faults due to the weird port to PC. But you know what doesn't have problems or faults? Today's sponsor. Today's sponsor is IntoTheAM. IntoTheAM makes a bunch of incredibly soft, comfortable shirts. They've also finally added a highly requested item, some hoodies. These hoodies range from fairly basic to graphic hoodies. Not only that, but they've added some windbreakers as well. I've been wearing their shirts around the house for quite a while. I've been describing them as my sweatpants, but for my shirts. They really are incredibly comfortable and soft, and they look pretty neat. That softness has also not gone away after I've washed them. If you want to check out this stuff for yourself, there are two different deals. You can get 3 graphic tees for $60 or 3 basic tees for $45. You can also use my link down below to get 10% off site-wide, and this does stack with the deals. I really could not recommend them enough. I accept their sponsors all the time because I assume most of you wear shirts, and I do like their products. They also support this channel way more than most other sponsors ever have, so huge thanks goes to IntoTheAM. And let's get back to the video. I guess let's start with the port, because while this port did add in some new things, it also added in a lot of bugs and removed old things that are kind of really important to the game. For starters, it added anti-aliasing, anisotropic filtering, and widescreen resolutions, though it doesn't feel like these resolutions were made for newer aspect ratios. While yes, this is 2560 by 1440 in-game, everything kind of looks a little fat and stretched, but it is there, and you don't need to do a workaround for these resolutions. A bigger problem is that this game does not play nice with a frame rate over 60. Even small things like trying to change your sensitivity or the audio is just impossible. See, you can't precisely click on this bar. You can't click on it at all, actually. So you have to use the arrow keys to adjust your sensitivity. And if you do that, this happens. Yeah, this is a result of it being over 60 FPS. If you put a 60 FPS cap, it works fine. Unfortunately, using the NVIDIA control panel didn't really work with capping the FPS. Instead, I had to turn on VSync, which added some input delay, and it just doesn't feel great. This isn't the only problem. If you keep it over 60 FPS, it'll cause a bunch of physics bugs, and it just cap it to 60. There are other problems, though. It removed multiplayer support, which, I mean, who's really playing multiplayer of this game? It removed quick saving, which kind of sucks, but at the same time, there's save points everywhere, so this isn't really that big of a deal. It removed third-person view, which I personally don't really care about too much because I prefer first-person. But most importantly, it removed most of the cutscenes. Why? This makes absolutely no sense. You have no context for whatever the hell is happening in this game. There is a few cutscenes, like say when you open the game and when you beat the game, but still there's a lot of context that is just being thrown out. What is going on? You effectively get the clip notes for the story. So let's go over them. The premise of this game is actually really interesting. It is 1964, and World War I never ended. Yep, World War I is still happening 50 years later. Now, we do oftentimes see alternate history turn into what if Germany won World War II, but rarely do we see this. It is an interesting concept, and you can do a lot with it. Unfortunately, they don't do a lot with it. It's a story about how one side is trying to take over all of Eurasia from the Atlantic to the Pacific, and how the Western forces are trying to stop that. But there is some vaguely interesting things happening in the background where someone on the Western side is trying to continue to fuel the war so that it never ends for profit. I say vaguely interesting because this has been done before and done much better. The result is that throughout the game you travel from Germany to Poland to Russia, and the final boss is not the person trying to take over all of Eurasia, but the person fueling them with more weapons. And this final boss is really anticlimactic. This man just jumps off the roof. That would have killed him. That is not how helicopters work. And I was suddenly using armor. That's not how that works. And now he's a villain. Ow. Man, I really feel good. I am a pro gamer. I'm MLG. Objective complete. See, look, they're congratulating me.
You've done such a great job, and I owe you a bottle of something really nice for this one.
What was the death sound? Yeah, no spoilers, but trust me, you're really not missing anything by not playing this game. And that's all I can really say about the story. Without the rest of the cutscenes, I don't know if there's anything more going on, but I'm willing to bet that there isn't. So let's move on to the graphics. They're really dull. I mean, these don't look awful. This game came out on the PlayStation 2 in 2002. It's definitely slightly below average for the PS2, but it's not terrible. The biggest problem this game has is just that everything is brown. There is no color in this game, and everything just sort of blends together. I will say at least the designs of the armor and the weapons is pretty interesting and unique. It does scream alternate history, or Warhammer 40k. I mean, that era did have some incredibly interesting prototypes for weapons that you never actually saw. That's one of the reasons why I really liked Battlefield 1. Well, that and it was actually a complete game that's not a complete mess like Battlefield 2042. Anyway, yeah, this game doesn't look fantastic, doesn't look awful. It's closer to average than bad, but it's definitely slightly below average. That also includes the animations, which I do feel are painfully average, at least for that time anyway. You could point to other games like, say, Halo Combat Evolved, which came out a year before, and go, see, that looked way better. But that also came out on the original Xbox, whereas this was on the PS2, which is quite a bit more limiting. You could also go, see, Black looked great on the PS2, why doesn't it look like Black? But that's like comparing things to Crysis in 2007. And that goes right to my next point. It's just more interesting to talk about other games than this game, but let's go on to the gameplay. Yeah, that's a shooter. This game is as mediocre and generic as you can possibly get. Thankfully, it doesn't outstay its welcome much. It still is a little longer than it should be, even at only 4 hours. It's a short game and it was still feeling like it was dragging along. Kind of had that feeling of when I was playing Chaser and it just wouldn't end. But thankfully this one is short, so it's more palatable. At least I can say that this game starts you off right away with a shotgun, which is a plus. The shotgun is okay. The enemies are, well, pretty generic enemies. Their AI isn't particularly smart. If you duck behind a corner, they'll just kind of blindly run at you. I mean, they do what they're supposed to. They shoot at you, they throw grenades. They will occasionally surrender. I usually killed them anyway. But I did have one time where one of them chucked a grenade at his feet after he was downed, which, okay. He dropped a grenade! What the fuck? But for the most part, you're not really going to be seeing anything crazy. The enemies do change over the course of the game, but in all reality, that just means they have more armor. To combat this, the game gives you better weapons, and then nothing really changes. They still die in the same amount of shots, which is good. They're not bullet sponges, but it's still the same gameplay, just a cosmetic change. The only thing that really made me pay attention to this game were suicide bomber dogs. Explosive dogs, what the fuck? Why are there explosive dogs? And yeah, there are tanks and turrets, but like, those are tanks and turrets. And that's a suicide bomber dog! Oh no. I couldn't see it through the fire, so I just kept shooting. Apparently Russians actually did this back then. Alright then. Again, I will at least give some credit to the weapons. They are a bit unique and different. Well, I won't really say different. They function pretty much like anything else, but they look different. It's mostly just a combination of SMGs, sniper rifles, and shotguns. But there are two weapons that I do want to point out. The first one is that the flamethrower is amazingly overpowered. Oh, I guess it's more of a... Oh my god. Fire! I walked into the wrong fucking room. And the second one is that the minigun is one of the best, most satisfying miniguns out of any game I've played. And it's in this game, one of the most generic games I've ever played. Holy shit. Okay, well, I like it. Anyway, yeah, it's a generic, linear, scripted, first-person shooter. If you played one in the past, you've basically played this game. I don't even have much to complain about. It's not necessarily bad. It's just not great either. Like, it just exists. World War Z is one of the games of all time. Like, I have nothing to praise and not a whole lot to complain about. Actually, no, there was one section I can complain about. You shoot something, it starts a chain reaction, time to escape. This part plays out pretty normal. You gotta fight through a bunch of enemies, you got 5 minutes to get to the train so you can end the level. This isn't very difficult at all, you should get to the train without any problem. That is, when you get to the train, nothing happens. I walked all around this train for 2.5 minutes, the level wouldn't end. I eventually thought, okay, well, I guess I have to jump onto the front of the train, but nope, that's not what you have to do. Enemies even run that direction, which draws your attention to that area, which is the only catwalk ladder thing on the whole train, but no, that's not where you need to go. Instead, you have to go up these stairs, push this button, which brings this crane thing over, jump onto that, and then jump on top of the train. Why? Who would think to do that? Predictably, I failed the first time and then looked up a walkthrough because I didn't want to waste time again, and I was very annoyed when I found out that's what you need to do. But that really is the only blunder in the game. The rest of the game is just, well, it's a shooter. In conclusion, World War Z is a video game. Should you play it? Not really, but I guess if you're really bored, it won't hurt much. I don't know. Like, it's so generic, I don't even have much to say. It just exists. And with that, I think I can end the video. Huge thanks to everyone that joined me over on Twitch. My Twitch is twitch.tv/JarekTheGamingDragon. If you subscribe on Twitch, you get to see my videos ahead of time. Also, a huge thanks goes to IntoTheAM. If you want any shirts like this, probably the only time you'll see me wearing something other than black and red, because these shirts are great. Check that link down below to get 10% off site-wide. And of course, thank you for watching this video.